most of you know Alyssa, that she's the documentary development and investment manager at Screen Oz. But before that, many of you probably don't know that she divided her time between the Sydney Film Festival and the Dubai, the Abu Dhabi Film Festival.
Yeah.
It was Dubai, Abu Dhabi, where she oversaw guest and industry teams and advised on programming, and that was between 2009 and 2012. Alyssa lived in New York for 10 years, where she also worked at the Tribeca Film Festival. Alyssa, Doco 180 initiative. Now this is interesting. Now, was it something that was it the Women's Network who came to you, or how did that come about?
Yeah, well, for those of you that don't know the platform, women.com.au is a digital platform from News Corp, essentially. So they also do Kids Spot and parenting.com and news.com.au. And they basically approached us through our communications department, trying to find ways to connect with documentary filmmakers for this new platform that they were launching back in March. And so we just started talking, and it's sort of an unusual way to set up the initiative, but they really needed to build those relationships with the documentary community. And so we agreed on doing this call out for 6 projects, 3 minutes, so really short form, from early career female directors. And the idea is for the female directors to change people's mind about a subject in 108 seconds. So it's tough. It's a tough call, and we've been really thrilled with what was delivered. They all got $6,000 each as well, so it's not a lot of money. It's really aimed at the early career space, and women put them up on their website and pushed them out through Facebook as well. I don't know if anyone in here has seen any of them on Facebook. Hopefully they've made it into your feed. That was the idea. And just at 5 o'clock today, I just tallied up the numbers, and the total views for the 5 projects is accumulated to 976,000. I was hoping I could say 1 million. I was close. Hopefully we'll be at 1 million at the end of the week. So it's an enormous reach. And then the shares were about 1,189 shares. So we've been really delighted with the response, and women.com.au have been really supportive, and they've done a lot of editorial work around the projects. And we are very excited to do another season of it next year. So we'll be doing a call out probably in January to do it again for another 6 teams.
All right, I think we'll go straight away into viewing 3 of those films.
Yeah, so we're showing 3, and there's another 2 online if you're interested, and I'm really open to hearing feedback about what you think of them all.
The first time I realised I wasn't just black, but very black, blue black, berry black, midnight black. I was on a school excursion to Canberra, and someone confused me for a black marble sculpture of a dead coloniser. I've learned to sit very still in public and limit my movements to make people comfortable and unafraid. People aren't expecting a thing as black as me to be real, to be human. This was something I had to get used to. When I was a young girl, I didn't have an understanding of what racism was. I didn't see myself. I didn't exist. It wasn't that I hated how I looked, but there was this sense that I must be unattractive, even if I didn't feel it in my body. I must be unappealing. I must be ugly. I've learned people are incapable of seeing anything other than blackness and what my skin colour means to them. But I can't change how I'm seen. There's only so much bleach in the world, and no surgeon could ever make me look like the little blonde girls I went to school with. This is my reality. I have learned to be proud of and to accept who I am. I am a Tonga Tem. I am an artist, and I am a black woman.
When I was in primary school, we had to draw a picture of what we wanted to be when we grew up. And all the girls in my class drew pictures of ballerinas. Do you want to know what I drew? A fat clown. Guess whose dreams came true? I've always made a lot of jokes about what I think my body says.
Do you think it could say anything else?
Other than I'm a fat clown.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Their milk machine. I'm starting to go grey, and so I guess my hair says that I'm no longer young and I'm getting old, but I don't know, I can't stop aging and just don't want to dye my hair. Got this scar here from ironing when I was pregnant, just forgetting that I had this hazard in the way, just like ironing into my belly. These stretch marks here are from my first child. Yeah, she stretched the bottom of my belly. And these are from my son. And this just hanging over my undies is because I haven't lost any baby weight.
Look harder.
So the scars on my wrist say that I suffer from depression. They say that I have been really vulnerable and scared and damaged. But I'm really, really trying to be here and be okay. Every day I'm trying that. I'm really, really proud of where I am because it took so much work. I don't know, you can only focus on so much in life, you know, like for me, I'm focusing on other things right now. I'm focusing on my kids, I'm focusing on being okay in myself, like in all the stuff that goes on inside of me, and I just don't have the time right now to tend to this. So for me, it is what my body has to be right now for me to be happy and okay. Actually, I'm more than okay.
Now that I'm a mother and I am trying to juggle my career, it's like the dream and the reality are two different things. So I've actually written a list and I've put on it everything that society tells me I should do in a day. And tomorrow, I am going to try and do it all because I want to know, is it just me? Am I missing something? Or is it all just a mission impossible? Can you tell that this has got snot all over my silk shirt? How many women do we know that have snot on their shirt all day? What do you reckon? Snot or unironed? We're already 15 minutes late. Come on. Day care drop off tick, but I am now running half an hour behind and next stop is traffic.
Already feel my stress levels absolutely going through the roof right now.
Hi Marion.
Oh, Shannon. Hi. Yeah,
Hello.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So can we get straight into it?
What women in Australia have done, they've increased their paid work hours, they've increased their unpaid work hours, both through childcare and housework. And so something has to give, as you've said. And the thing that they don't have anymore is time for themselves.
I've got a brief window now where I can fit in the recommended amount of 30 minutes of exercise a day during my lunch break, so I am going to take that opportunity.
So we're talking about the fact that there simply aren't enough hours in the day to do it all. Something ends up giving, doesn't it?
Look, our research shows that one of the things that ends up giving is women's health. One of the issues I think there is this stress. I mean, how do you combine that career, ambition, desire to be a good mother in the hours that you have?
Dinner. Haven't thought about dinner. Hello! Glad you're still open.
Eat. It followed her to school one day.
Okay, so that is dinner and bath and stories tick. And now back to the computer because I still have to meet my work quota for the day. If I was to try and get the 8 to 9 hours sleep that the average woman needs each night, then I should technically be asleep now. But that's not going to happen because I still have some bills to pay and I still need to hit my household chores quota for the day. So that means that I am now officially on borrowed time. You know what's kind of scary about this video that we're doing is that we're not ending with a solution. Sorry. I just want to end this video. Have you got your focus? So I am done and I'm exhausted, and it's little wonder because there are not 28 hours in the day. There's a really important conversation that we need to have about the work-life time deficit, but right now I am going to bed.
It came about because I am a health journalist and I have an online audience, an international audience that follows what I do, and quite regularly people write and say, what's going on, like I'm missing something here, you know. When you look at all the recommendations that all the experts say we need to do, you know, everything from cooking everything from scratch and exercising every day, it's actually impossible, and it equals 28 hours. So that was the point of the video, as you probably all saw, is to show that it's impossible to do it all. And I think the response has been that mostly people have gone, oh my God, no wonder I'm so tired. Or the female women online audience that this was directed at.
What about production challenges?
Oh, production challenges. Well, fortunately, Jules, my husband, is a filmmaker. So it wasn't too much of a big deal to let him into my life to film us doing our bits and pieces. But running late, you know, filming, as I'm sure this audience is aware of, production takes a long time, and getting the shot right can actually interfere with the schedule, the daily schedule. Yeah.
forward.
Have you been surprised by any of the feedback that you've gotten on social media?
I have been surprised. Mostly it's people have got the point of the video, which is that we need to have a conversation about the work-life time deficit. But social media is a beast. And it was, for us, this was a bit of an experiment to see how we would feel about being so present in a film, and people criticising, people making comments. There were some comments, I should say, not a lot, but there were enough comments where people felt that the film was making an argument that women shouldn't be working. There was one comment that really stuck out, where one woman said, "Get your act together, you're just not organised enough." I've got 3 children, I'm out of the house at 7:30 every morning. My husband does drop off, I leave work early and do pick up. So I said, in reply to that comment, well, that's great, what's your secret? Because we'd all like to know what it is. And also for me, one thing that we didn't have time with, and this was one of the challenges in making a short film, is that there are so many issues we wanted to go into on this. And one of them is what happens when the systems fail. Like, you can be the most organised person in the world, but a child gets sick or your childcare for whatever reason falls through. And then it happened to me today actually. I was supposed to be on a shoot today. And my childcare plans, we had backup plans in place and they fell through. And I had to cancel the shoot. And so everything falls down. And so that's what I said to this woman on social media. It's like, well, what's your backup plans? And Marion Baird, who is the expert who we featured in the film, said really interestingly that the report that she was talking about in the film found that it isn't the father. So the mother is usually the primary carer in the event of a child getting sick, but it's not the father who's the secondary carer. It's the mother, the mother's mother, so the grandmother of the child. So if you're a parent without that other family support, there's a whole other discussion to be had there. But yeah, hard to cover in 180 seconds. Yeah.
I think a lot of the filmmakers found that the most challenging because a lot of the rough cuts came in at quite significantly over 3 minutes, and but I've been really happy with they really pared back and stuck to the brief for the most part. Yeah.
Yep.
That's why you decided on 3 minutes. Is that some sort of research that people watching online have an attention span which wanders after 3 minutes?
Yes, that's a big part of it, and also the limitation used to be, it's changed now, was for 3 minutes of video on Facebook for a while, but that changed a while ago, and Twitter definitely.
Changed in what sense?
Well, it's you can have longer content.
Oh, it's getting, you can have longer,
yeah, definitely.
Shorter and shorter.
Yeah, but we wanted to do something really shareable and easy to digest, and that people would really, take a look at it. You've really got about 3 seconds, apparently, statistically, to draw people in to watch something. So they're more likely to watch it if it's shorter, apparently, according to women.com.au. And they've been super happy with the completion rates, and the fact that they were shared so much is really significant too, because it's an extra step. It's not just making a comment on it, it's sharing it within your own networks. So it's obviously, people are relating to them. And, that's really what the whole initiative was, the intention was.
And technically, was there a push to go towards phones or tablets in the way it was formatted and delivered and mastered?
Yeah, but it was fairly limited. I mean, the idea, that would be watched on your phone. That's why they had the subtitles actually embedded in the projects, which is not ideal in some ways. Like, you can see Black as Me, it's such a visual piece, and it was sort of, to me, it was a shame that you can't turn off the subtitles. But that's something that's really, the technology hasn't caught up, and hopefully for the next season we'll be able to work with that more, because you can now in some players have the option of turning off the videos, but most people are watching it on their mobile devices with subtitles, and that's how they're consuming content these days. That's a majority, and which is a shame in one way, but we're kind of, open to working in that format, definitely.
So you're mastering across 3 or 4 different platforms every film?
Not for this initiative, no. It was just the one. Right. It works, and they've formatted it at women.com.au to work across multiple devices.
How do you find out about it? Is it through Screen Australia or through the women.com?
Through Screen Australia, yep, definitely. If you don't already follow us on Facebook, you definitely should. Twitter, and also we've got a Doc e-news email that goes out, and any of these new initiatives that we're working on, we normally do a big call out for them. And if you're looking for something specifically, then definitely check out our website too. We did recently another initiative with The Guardian, which hopefully we'll do another year, but we're not sure yet. And also another one with Vice for a pitching competition at AIDC, just for one project. And hopefully we'll have new ones to announce soon.
And what's the protocol in terms of women? So a male directed yours, did they have to be
Shannon
I directed it.
You directed it?
It has to be a female director.
Yeah.
Oh, so what was the...
My husband was the cinematographer, or co-cinematographer with another cinematographer as well. And he was a producer as well.
So in terms of women's contribution, was there a protocol that they had to be the subject or the creation?
They're all directed by women, all of the projects, and that's definitely part of the eligibility requirements. So, there's lots of... I'm expecting we'll get a lot of Me Too campaign proposals for the next season, and yeah, that's fine. That could be really topical and interesting. But we're really open, to subjects that are more unusual and don't get covered in the mainstream media. That's pretty interesting too. And I was really pleasantly surprised by what News Limited were open to, because they're a pretty traditional conservative corporation, but obviously they've supported some pretty non-mainstream stories, so I was pretty happy
so
about that.
So does that mean they were the final deciders?
No, it's a collaboration, definitely. We worked with them very much in tandem to select the finalists. We had about 40 applications, so it's really whittling it down to the 5.
In your you said 900,000 heading towards $1 million. Do you have this is great. Do you have a breakdown on the different films?
Yeah, I do. I just left it in my notebook, but I'm happy to get it.
Well, I guess the second part of that question is: were you surprised by which ones worked better than others, if they did?
Well, it's also about the timing of the release, because they were staggered over a 5-week period, and obviously the first one, which was My Body Says, has garnered the most views just because it's been up longer. And Black as Me has been shared a lot, which is really interesting too. Not as many views, but the people who did view it cared enough about it to share it, and that was very high. And Shannon's project is definitely getting up there too. It's almost at 200k, I think, views. And that was the one that was released just last week. So it's still early days. And I think that it's a 1-year exclusivity for them, and then it can be on their website for another 3 years. So I think we're going to see continuing. They won't be as rapid as they were in the first few weeks, but I imagine they'll keep continuing to clock up views.
It's really interesting to produce a documentary that's really short, that is designed for social media. You go about it in a completely different way. Down from the structure to having a point land, and to basically really beating people over the head with a really simple message, because the vast majority of social media is used as a distraction from our everyday lives. The vast majority of people are using social media as I'm bored, I just need to distract myself. And so you have to kind of tap into that mindset in order to get engagement. So with our video, we particularly knowing, for example, that it's the first 3 seconds or bust, that's why you may recall at the beginning of the video, it's this rapid fire montage of a typical woman's day. And that is literally because we wanted people cerebrally, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody intelligent. But basically to just unconsciously go, that's my day, oh, this looks interesting, and then engage. Same for the piece to camera, that opening piece to camera. We actually scripted that, and we scripted it, we actually shot it in different contexts and experimented with how it would feel, whether it would be right as I'm getting home from my day, right as I'm pulling the shopping in from the car. And we thought, ultimately we landed with, it's the washing up at the end of the night when the woman is feeling the worst. And we thought that, and knowing as well that people are not going to be listening to it or like through audio, that they were only going to be reading the words, in post-production we selected the words that they would be reading to get them to then engage. And if you look back on the video, you'll notice that the first few words in that piece are actually about now that I'm a mother, and the dream and the reality are different things. And so now I'm on a mission and I'm going to try and tick everybody. And it was this kind of way to kind of go, okay, they're hooked. So we're hoping that it's going to actually keep, we've noticed that it's now gone out to the second tier, so beyond the initial seeding audience. You can kind of tell whether a video is going to take off because you've got this kind of sort of first wave, which happens from that initial seed, and then you've got the second wave. And depending on what happens in that second wave, it then goes out in rings and rings and rings. And so we're hoping, just as an interesting experiment, we're hoping that it's going to be the next ring that's going to hopefully take off. Although I'm not sure if I'm quite ready for the onslaught of people's opinions about my life.
Wow.
Did you have complete control, that the 6 directors had complete control, or did News Limited and Screen Australia have, how did that work though? Did you see cuts?
We saw rough cuts, and I gave more detailed notes, and women.com just gave kind of more top-line broad notes. And about the tone really was a lot of their feedback, and about that first 3 seconds, as Shannon spoke about, they were a little concerned with Black As Me because the opening shot is so dark and it looks amazing on the big screen. They were very concerned about that being lost on social media, but you know what, with the text over it, it's so powerful what she's saying, it really works. And that was sort of a little bit of a risk for them, I guess, but it's certainly paid off.
And can you tell if they've gone to international audiences as well?
That is a really great question, and I've been chasing them for completion rates and for that data as well. And I think it's just complicated for them because it's on their website as well as on Facebook. And I think the Facebook data is a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to get it definitely. I'm really curious about that too.
Please clarify, I'm not quite clear, the News Limited, women.com.au, what's the relationship? Who started what?
News Corp started a digital branch, which is News Digital Australia, and they're the ones that oversee, like the big ones, news.com, Kids Spot, all their big digital channels. And then I think they wanted to launch a female-focused platform because you've got Mamma Mia out there, which is probably their main competitor, and they just did it in March, so it's still early days for the platform, and they came in to see us before they launched. So this was really, they needed content for their platform, and they just didn't know how to engage with the documentary community here. And the other thing I've been happy about is that I'm hoping that they're a huge company, obviously, and I'm hoping there'll be other opportunities for the 5 directors. And they're certainly still engaging with you and talking to all of them about potential other opportunities across all of their platforms. So for us, it's great. It has a dual purpose to make a great piece of content and also facilitate the introductions to to a big media company that can potentially lead to commercial, endeavours, hopefully.
Employment.
Indeed, yeah.
Did they just provide the women, or did they put money in?
They put money in. Yeah, we with the 6,000 that was split, they put in half. So the overall initiative was 36,000, 18,000 each. So it's not a lot of money, but you know, it's really been of great value to us in other ways and to them.
You're saying before there's going to be a similar initiative next year, you hope?
Maybe, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, but certainly, I mean, they've been great so far, these initiatives. The Guardian will be really interesting. Those projects will be announced publicly in March next year, and then, you know, some really amazing applications for that.
Good. Stated, any last minute questions?
Actually,
yes, one more.
You said it earlier, Alyssa, that it was important for news to connect with documentary filmmakers, I think.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is that just for this kind of short form content, or do they have a bigger view on that?
Well, I think now that, you know, the news is so much online, and they're all making videos now. I mean, look at all of them; they've all got video content. Most of the time, it's done in the house, but I think that the audiences are demanding kind of more authentic storytelling. And if you look at some of the video content that's on women.com.au, some of it's really light, kind of clickbait type. But you know, they're super thrilled with how these people have engaged with this material, because it is, you know, it's most of them are very personal stories, and they're very brave, and it's obviously appealed. It was a risk for us too. I didn't know whether their audiences would be into it, but it's certainly been really great. We've been really happy with the response.
So rather than like get news journalists to try and create longer form content that goes straight to the documentary, they just to create newsworthy content.
Basically, yeah, and then building editorial around the issues and each projects. They've got an article, when they released them, they had them on their website with a companion article. The articles were fairly brief, but they kind of touched on the issues that have come up, and yeah, they're great. And then they're sort of pushing it out onto their other networks, which is, I think, is the next stage, where they're going to put it. You know, maybe Shannon's one will go out on Kids Spot and Parenting.com. I don't know if that exists anymore, that one, but anyway, they're sort of thinking about it strategically to reach even a wider audience from women.com, but also cross-promoting that as a platform because it is so new, and they you know, want to kind of get the word out there. I mean, had anyone heard of women.com.au? No. So it's still new, it's early days, and that stands with Her in Mind network, so it's a bit of a mouthful.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I've rang Screen Australia before, and I'm a short documentary filmmaker, and they said that they no longer have specific categories to fund short films. And I think there was even an announcement a year and a half ago that Screen Australia don't have this capacity anymore. However, since that, I keep spontaneously discovering that there are other means. So is this kind of new media platform for short, snappier films, is it a replacement, or is it taking the attention over to faster media rather than cinematic short films? Is that
well, I think that they're not necessarily mutually exclusive in my mind, being cinematic and being short form. I don't see the difference. I don't know what you were told, but we're certainly supportive of the short form, certainly through these initiatives, and we still fund plenty of cinematic feature docs as well.
Well, I was actually really reluctant to do it because we were speaking to ABC about their initiative. What was it called? Opening Shot Initiative. And so Mark and I, my producer, had applied with another idea, and yeah, they seemed to like the team, but they weren't too thrilled with the idea. So we were talking about a few different ones, and I was kind of reluctant to pitch this idea just because I felt so bad about it. I just felt, I didn't really know why, but I felt terrible about everything that had happened. And anyway, so it just, ABC grabbed on that idea. I guess it's new and exciting to them. And they kind of poked and prodded me in that area, and I said, all right, let's do it. And then I didn't want to overcook the process too much because I was directing and also in front of camera, so I didn't want to over prepare, if that makes sense. Like, because I had to be a subject as well as a director, so I got a friend and we spoke through Skype through the screen, so we had like a teleprompter. And we just spoke about it for hours. He wasn't familiar with what had happened, so it was great because he kind of just played the role of the audience. He was just asking me questions about things he wanted to know, and then I would tell him. And so that was the backbone of it. Like, I knew I felt bad about it, but I hadn't spent enough time thinking about it to realize exactly why that was. And then over the process of speaking about it for hours on end, which you don't really get a chance to do in everyday life, it was, coming to terms with all the reason for that, I guess.
And what do you think of the whole thing now? I mean, had you had your life back then, would you have done it? I don't think you would have, from what you say in the film.
I learned so much. I find it really hard. Like, that's the question that everyone asks is, would you do it again? But I don't know why I can't answer that. It's because I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that situation. So I don't know how I would have behaved. I don't know. I don't think I did anything wrong. I just didn't do anything right either. Like, the process of making the film and all the research and speaking to everyone involved, I guess I was doing the accounting, like the moral accounting, and I was looking for what constructive elements came from this whole thing. And the more I looked, I just couldn't find anything constructive to come from it. So I guess that's what I found, and then I reported that back. But in terms of doing it again, I think personally some positives have come from it, and I think making this film was a positive. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's squared it away, but I feel at peace with it now because I've spoken to Hayden, and we're actually in some kind of, we're strange friends in a way, I guess. And I'm sorry, I'm blathering on a bit, but I don't know how to answer that. Would you have done it or would you have not? I don't think I did anything constructive.
I guess I just put into a real moral dilemma there.
Well, it's still ambiguous, you know what I mean? Like, I left it that way, so it's often these conversations are a back and forth with an audience who don't actually agree with my final position on it. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand you grappling with it. I mean, I would have done that too, because that racism is so blatant, and on the other hand, the outcome for those two guys wasn't good. Particularly the red-faced man. Could you tell me, did you try and track him down?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to track him down. We just couldn't find him. Like, we looked through, like, even birth notices. We became private investigators for a while. We were staking out a pub that we knew that he was at. He'd been at, and he was just nowhere to be seen. I'm fairly certain he's either changed his name or moved away, or he's hidden away. He's definitely not on the internet in any sense.
Mm. And how did you find the other one who interviewed? Sorry, I forget his name.
Hayden. No, Hayden. That's fine. Well, during the whole viral explosion, a lot of people sent me their Facebook addresses, just saying, "Oh, these are the guys, I know them." So I had them to use at the start. So I'd contacted him via Facebook early on, but it was a weird thing. It's like, "Hey, I'm the guy that did this horrible thing to you. Do you want to help me out?" Like, it didn't really translate by text. And so we'd fully given up on that, and we'd actually finished the documentary, and we had like a week until it was the deadline for ABC, and I ran into him on the street near the apartment that I was staying at. It was in Collingwood. He was doing rehab just around the corner, and it was such a strange thing because I'd been editing, and I just thought I'd been in my editing cave too long, and I was like, this can't be him. I'm seeing things, and so I just started following him through the back streets for like 45 minutes to kind of build up the courage to just ask if it was him and just to have a chat with him, and then so I did. I approached him, and he immediately was like it was like he was expecting a hit or something like that. He kind of flinched when I said hi to him, and then I introduced myself, and he goes, "Yeah, I know, you're Mike, you're the guy." And then it was this weird pause where we were just looking at each other, and we didn't know who should apologize. Like he felt sorry, I felt sorry. It was just this big mess that we'd both been a part of, but we never actually met. And just over the next few weeks, he was initially reluctant, just I think because of his mum, to get involved. Like I think I actually spoke to his mum at one point, and I got the sense that she was more shamed by the whole thing than he was. He's got mental problems, drug problems, all sorts of things. So it's like he's been through some pretty hectic stuff in his life. But then the family around him, they were affected by what happened. So I think she was reluctant to let him do it. And then over the next few weeks, we figured out a situation where he'd be comfortable. So I brought him in, we had an interview, and then I showed him the interview before we put it to air.
I'm going to open to the audience, and there's a question at the back of the roof, is it?
Yeah, okay, so you were stirred up by the racism of this, and that seems to be the bit that has been taken up around the world.
Mm.
The bit I find really as disturbing, but as a woman maybe more disturbing, is a lack of commentary around the violent threatening of the young female. Now, the French woman, she was French. She may not have understood what was being said. She was at the back of the bus. She probably didn't hear it. It was in another language.
Yeah.
Black cunt, I'm going to cut you up. Very disturbing to hear. So it's nice that she wasn't affected by that at the time because she was too pissed to know what was being said. It strikes me as a story about some men behaving badly, made by some men who were upset by that. Everyone talked about it. You've made it. It's still a kind of male story, but like, what about the fact that this kind of violent threatening by two possibly men feeling small and inferior, how do we kind of process? I love that you made the film and that we're having this debate and it's causing conversation. I'm just wondering if we can, where we go with that aspect.
Well, I feel like I've kind of deconstructed what happened on the bus as best I can, and I think what was going on the actual bus was she was, it was horrible. Like there's nothing that can justify what he was doing. It was horrible, and he deserves some kind of retribution for that. Don't get me wrong about that. But I think what was actually going on was she was a safe target, because it's often, how do I explain this? I think by going for her, it wasn't ever going to escalate into this violent thing. So if he had have done that to another guy, it would have been more of a risk for him, if that makes sense. And I think that she wasn't worried because there was rows and rows of people who would have stood in as soon as those threats became physical. So it was almost like there was this kind of dynamic tension in the air, that there was a few men there in the bus. I, for one, was like, oh well, I need to be quiet now, because this can escalate, and if I get involved, then it turns violent. Like, if by him abusing her as a female, it wasn't escalating to that next point. So yeah, I think that's I mean, that's a strange explanation, but I think that's part of the explanation of why he was attacking her. And there's almost a safety for him in attacking her verbally, not physically, if that makes sense.
I get that because I get attacked verbally all the time on the street as a female cyclist by men who think they can get away with it, who wouldn't do that to a man. So I'm just bringing up the fact that women are subjected to this all the time. Nobody talks about it because they're all concerned with all these other issues, but actually I found that incredibly frightening, and I think the only reason she didn't was she didn't understand it. She didn't hear it, and maybe she was at the back of the bus and, but for any other woman hearing that, it's incredibly frightening to have that kind of thing threatening you, and it goes on all the time. So I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying it's an interesting aspect of what you filmed here and what you're discussing that I just wanted to kind of point out, rather than
it's definitely a huge part of it. Like, I think the magistrate, Jenny Goldsborough, she brought a lot of attention to that in the court proceedings at the end. So there's quite a few articles about her comments and this violence against women aspect. So I think it's definitely an aspect of what was going on. I guess I was restricted to this half-hour slot, so it's like I really had to choose what I was running with frugally, I guess. So the running with the race thing, because that was the biggest theme that came out of it, so I just had to run with that. But yeah, you're 100% correct. There was some horrible stuff going on that bus.
It's about power, the whole thing, whether you're picking on racist people or women or whoever you think you can get away with it. That's really what you were illuminating.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad you picked up on that, because the whole thing is this weird. It shifts in power, right? Like, it's on the bus, they have the power of numbers, then on the internet we have the power of numbers, and it's this shifting kind of power dynamic, and it's like, at what point do you pull back? At what point are you the powerful one? It's it's interesting. I'm glad you picked up on that.
So you've been living with this film now for 2 years?
Yeah,
roughly?
I think so. Yeah. Not 2 years, maybe one and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been to OzDox?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was so good.
Yeah. And what was the response from the audience there?
It was huge. Like, I was surprised at how people would react to it. I guess I hadn't even had a screening or anything like that. The best I'd seen was my family watching it, and Mum's always going to tell me it's good. So sitting in a huge, it was a massive theatre complex, and have people like applaud it. Like, in the revenge scene, people were applauding, and they were doing all the right things. Like, I thought, while I was editing it, I was like, I want them to be feeling this, I want them to be feeling that, and the reactions were reflecting that was going well. So it was one of the greatest experiences ever. It was awesome. So, and the other thing, it was like this. Like, a lot of people don't actually agree with my final position on it, and a lot of people have hit me up since and said that it made them think for days and days after, and I think that's a really good result. I really love that happened.
Are you tired of it now?
Yeah. I just want to do something else now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm restless. I don't want to. Yeah, it's a strange thing. Like, I guess that was a really, really good experience, but I kind of want to put it to bed and then figure out what the next thing is.
It was a pretty intense experience.
Yeah, and because I'm in it as well, like, it's a weird thing, because I had to look at me from the outside. It was therapy, but also a little bit. It's probably not healthy to look at yourself on an editing timeline for that long and assess your own behaviour and stuff like that. No wonder I'm kind of ambiguous at the end. It's like Inception after a while. It's Alice in Wonderland. You don't know which way's up.
Oh, it's a great film, Mike. You should be.
Thank you. I'm glad you all came out to come and see it. Thank you. Well, I guess the interesting thing with this doc is it's got like a narrative thread through it. So anything that's kind of not, that it's not, I think you would have noticed it moves really, really, really fast. And we only had half an hour to tell this huge kind of story. So it's almost like it's a process of not giving too much information or concept ideas and things like that. It's anything that doesn't progress the story. It had to go. We had like a half an hour to do this whole thing. So there's all these beautiful like themes and things that I would have liked to have explored in more depth, but I think that would have bled it out to be like a full feature-length documentary. So it's very much like bare bones. It's a story running through. You're getting punched in the face the whole time, and there's not really. It's quite difficult, and I was figuring out how to make a doc as well. Like, there's probably a million things I would have done differently, but it was a process of me learning as well as not having any time to play with, I guess. I was interested to hear your comments on Fanny. Fanny didn't seem fazed by the hideous comments that he was throwing at her. And I just wonder how would you have liked me to have spoken about that element of it, I guess. Just to bring it up, is that correct? Or
I don't think you should have done it any differently than the way you did. I'm just observing it as a woman, thinking, okay, this is a story about something that happened to a woman, but the woman actually is almost not a character. Because it's really all about the men, how they reacted, what they did after, how you thought about it, and that's okay. I was just observing that. I'm not criticising.
And so how did that, as an audience member, how did that make you feel? Do you feel like perhaps there's something missing, or how are you feeling as a result of that?
I'm used to it.
Definitely something missing. Okay, yeah, I think I was commenting on Ruth's comment because I felt the missing commentary from that girl, and I guess I hadn't focused on the fact that she wasn't fussed about it. But it's also the context. So at the moment we've got a lot in the media about domestic violence and violence against women that's going unreported. So you view a film in a different context and that comes up more strongly.
That's interesting because it points to the media fluctuations and what they would have, like if I had have created that video now, everyone would have grabbed on that, no doubt. But at the time, it was around the time when the Indians were getting Indian students were getting attacked on trains. So if you think about the media landscape at the time, that it makes sense that they would have grabbed onto that, and in a way I played to that in the video in order for it to go viral. So I think it did. There's what he did on that bus was horrible. Like he was attacking everyone. Like there was homophobic slurs, there was racial slurs, there's horrible misogynistic stuff going on. And so it is interesting that at the time was the thing that everyone ran with. And it was changing. The media landscape was changing around the time that the court cases were going on. And if you look at all the reporting on it at that point, the violence against women angle did take a lot more of a central focus. So I think it's really interesting that you guys. You were talking about the current landscape and done in a different context. It's interesting how the fluctuations of the media.
Shannon, you had a question? You're right.
This can see through if there's more discussion on that topic.
Kevin.
Yeah.
The commentary about the treatment of women in the film is very relevant. I just want to move the topic on to something else if I can. I saw the viral. Your first feed when it was going around Facebook. So that's the only exposure I've had to this story outside of seeing this film tonight.
Right.
And so it was really interesting to see how you had both deconstructed and reconstructed the story and narrative, and obviously through the limitations of time and all sorts of things you focus. what became clear to me through the narrative that you did create was that you were actually the victim, and that you, in a way, were telling a story that saw yourself. I mean, I don't think you were trying to sort of make yourself crucify yourself, but you were. And the turning point in that narrative for me was when you were walking behind the guy and you made the remark when he was heading to the station, and you about his machismo gait, and he was walking and you didn't go and confront him, or you didn't go, you let it go and you felt shamed by that. And from that point on in the narrative, you seem to then, to really explore that whole sense of shame and how it started to pull you up, which became a very engaging part of the story for me. And I just wondered, in terms of your reflection as a filmmaker, I mean, you talked about how it was a very therapeutic process to do it, but you were very sick of it, but I just thought I'd be interested to hear your comment on that.
Well, yeah, that's really great. I really love that you picked all that up, because I guess there was a little bit of let's shit on me now coming from it, because I did feel bad for it, and I was lauded. People loved what I did so much, and I felt like a bit of a fraud, because if you break it all down, if I am being honest, and I tried to brush on this at the end, it was kind of about my revenge. And then when the media came around, I was enjoying the attention, and I was like, I feel like, in a way, I used the race thing. It was there, but I did use it, and so I felt really guilty about that, and I just wanted to show that. I don't. That's what I found while I was exploring it, and that's what I think the truth is. So I just wanted to show the truth, and I feel like now, a lot of activism there's very little constructive behaviour in activism. And I see a lot of this kind of what I was doing, which is just there's a lot of personal revenge or status gaining from a lot of activism that I'm seeing at the moment, and I felt I played that game, and I didn't really I felt quite bad for it. The goal for me there in that first video that went viral, it was under the guise of creating a better society or whatever. But if I break it all apart, social cohesion was the last thing that came from it, or nothing actual constructive or positive came from it. It was just a bunch of negative energy being pushed out into the world. And so I just wanted to hold myself to account for that, I guess.
I think the group of people singing French songs on buses was a very positive thing to come out of it.
Yeah, those beautiful songbirds. Yeah, that's the main positive to come from it.
I'd just like to know what's next for you as a...
Oh, what's next? I've got a few ideas that I'm kind of chipping away at. It's not... none of them are at a point where I can talk about them properly. So I'm exploring a few ideas. There's 3 at the moment, which I'm speaking to people and making sure that I've got the access and figuring out whether they're good on camera and all that sort of thing. So I really love this documentary thing. I want to keep playing with it.
I think it would make a great video resource in universities for people studying social media, because I was really taken by your story of how you set out to do something but something else happened. And I know a few people who have been really seriously traumatised by saying what they think is the right thing through social media and then getting vilified and having threats that they'll get them and their children and they know where they live, and this sort of terrifying thing of the anonymity, and that the whole thing about the so-called good guys, the anti-racists, wanting to slit the throats and smash up the bad guys. So it's got an incredible complexity about who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. And I think,
as the lady said earlier, where the power is, it's when you've got numbers like that, it's who's actually got the power now. It shifts the whole dynamic. So it's a lot more morally ambiguous than when you're just clicking through and looking at this discussion, I think.
And also that you started off thinking you had the power by posting it, and then you completely lost control and lost it. You had no power in the end.
There's nothing you can do past a certain point. It's like, yeah, it is. It's like a weather system's the only way to look at it. It's you set this thing in motion and it turns into this crazy cyclone and houses get burnt down.
Thank you. It's an amazing film.
Yeah, thanks for watching. It's really good discussion.
There's room for maybe a couple more questions.
Oh yes. I was interested at the start of the film. You sort of alluded to the fact that you were possibly seen as a content provider in terms of some of the films that you're making about your friend's Axe film and delivering content to the internet. There's a discussion that I know through some documentary makers working with Vice or talking to Vice in America, and the journey of Vice in America coming out of a period of being content providers and accessing documentaries and documentary makers. Can you talk a little bit about that, like coming from that content provider aspect as a craft into documentary, what that's been like?
Oh, right. It was marketing. Like that was my background. Like I've always wanted to do something in the creative world, but no opportunities presented themselves to me. So it was like at one point you got to pay the bills and start a career. So I started down this like the marketing line, and that was the only place that would have me. And then slowly I learned that. So like the content comes from in the marketing world, as I'm sure you know, it's about eliciting emotions, poking and prodding people and getting people to act. Like there's some kind of, so I guess that is the thing I'm bringing to it. And now I've got to stop with the bells and whistles, if that makes sense. I'm trying to evolve into something that's a little bit more filmmaker and less marketing producery kind of guy. I don't know. Does that answer a question? I'm just rattling on here.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion because there's a lot of people who come from documentary who want to have something online and necessarily that they're not getting paid for that, and content providers are coming from the other end, and it's an interesting discussion where they both meet and how people make money out of documentary if it is going online.
Oh well, yeah. I'm trying to figure that out now. I got no idea. Like it's. I wasn't exactly making documentaries before when I was making money, but so now it's like how are we going to figure that out? But as you said, Vice is so there's all these opportunities coming with shorter form documentaries. Like Screen Australia had the one with The Guardian recently, and Vice is actually teaming up with Screen Australia now, and it's interesting to see. Like I think there is more and more opportunities coming up, but I feel like we're on the cusp of it. I don't think there's been a great deal in the past. Otherwise, I would have jumped at those kinds of opportunities.
I was just saying that I thought your sound design was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And watching it at the very beginning, it was like a thriller. It was really, uncomfortable. And then you really switched it up a lot into the kind of mania of social media when something takes off, and then all of a sudden, so I thought that was really good.
Yeah, oh, thank you. I'm a 90s kid, so it's all film clips to me. Like I just love film clips heaps. So I guess it's all like the music is the emotion behind the thing. So I love sound design more than any other part. Like there's all these layers and layers and layers of sound that I put in. But I think music is the most important part, one of the most important part. From now on, I made a rule that I'm going to put a shitload of the budget away for music in the end, because I love when you get to that point and you get to play with a playlist. And all my favorite films have great soundtracks, so I think it's really, really important.
Thank you very much, and I know the audience here really appreciated that. Thank you.
Go enjoy your drinks or whatever's happening now.
Oh yes, we'll have a drink for you, Mike.
Please do, have a few.